Hey guys, this is a quick video that just runs down the growth model stuff that we talked about at SNC. Right. So something we really need to understand is that things that work for one entity will not necessarily work for another one, depending on where they are in terms of their leadership, their structure, their sales activity, the number of accounts, etc. Right. So the kind of strategies that one entity should be working on can be completely different from a strategy that another entity should be working on. And one way in which we really want to work this and implement this is to understand the growth model and where each of your entities lie in terms of the growth model and what needs to happen, what you need to evolve to move to the next stage. Now, the growth model stages, there are about 6 of them, but the 2 of them that we're going to be focusing on are the first 2, creativity and direction. The reason why is because the majority of our entities are in creativity, and there are some that are in direction, and in 1 and 2, which is only one entity being in direction 2 right now, right? So first thing, if you do not understand the growth model really well, please read up on the growth model to the growth model handbook. That's really helpful because primarily here I'm going to be talking about in terms of IGIP, what does it mean to be in each of these stages. So the first stage is more of an exploratory phase, right, where there's not much sales happening, barely any, you don't have any accounts. And members only have a very basic AD education. People are not using any other form to generate leads besides cold calling. Customer service is pretty poor. Sales is scattered. You just go all over the place. Like anytime you can get a meeting with whatever kind of a company, you go do it, right? So that's like where a creativity one entity is. Now, in terms of a structure, what I would recommend is that you have a VP ICX and about 4 to 5 members there, and you just focus on one market. And in general, I would say just focus on marketing. Right? We've seen a lot of success in it in the past year, and we have a really high supply of marketing interns in the network as well. Now, in order to evolve, the most important thing is education. Right? So you deliver education, bring trainers in if you need to for members to understand how this IGIP process works. You raise an account, you start sales activity, do some specific recruitment for ICX, so you know what kind of people you need, like, driven, motivated, intrinsically motivated individuals, and you start using the ICX material in sales meetings. Now, creativity too is a survival phase where members and your team has like a little bit of like a basic understanding of how ICX works, but what you need to really do here is like bulk sales activity and still just focus on one sub product. But in most cases, you're still like not doing too many forms of lead generation besides cold calling, which you should change and you should evolve. There's still a lack of customer service training in place, but the VP is aware of basic leadership processes. So the VP is trying to do a little bit in terms of like leadership and like membership in general. But raises generally come in just because of disbandment, where entities are like, crap, I have to get 2 or 4 for ICX, and that's why I'm going to be focusing on like trying to get more. And the structure here pretty much stays the same as a creativity one entity, because maybe you just need, instead of 4, you need 5 or 6 members in the team, and that's all you should have if you're a creativity 2 entity. Now, in order to evolve, you really need to start looking at other forms of lead generation. You start focusing on sub-product, and that's like after you've had basic sales activity and you have a couple accounts, that's when you start thinking about having account managers. So you still don't, I would not recommend still splitting up BD and AD, but just have like, account managers for specific accounts, and members truly understand the entire ICX process. Once all these things happen, that's when you move into creativity 3, which is a very crucial stage. This is the stage which we're calling it's the launchpad stage, and this is the point where like you truly do what you can to break through to move forward. And the biggest things you need to that are happening now are like you have more than a couple accounts. Several people are going on meetings as opposed to just the VP or like 1-star individual. But sourcing, the account delivery side is still very passive. You're not actively sourcing at this stage, and team is able to identify problems with their accounts but still require a lot of national support in order to fix them. And there's like basic training systems, basic tracking systems in place. It's still not happening at the level that it should be. And this is important because this is the place where you generally have a leadership crisis. This is the place where entities are lacking the leader that they truly need in order to break through with respect to IGIP. And the structure here, the only addition would be like an account manager. And with respect to account managers, this really depends on the number of accounts you have as an LT. So if you have 4 or 5 accounts, yeah, maybe you need a couple account managers as opposed to just one, right? So that was a gist of the creativity phase where sellers are still reacting as the market reacts, and you're trying to understand the true ICX processes and like focusing more on sales activity, right? In order to evolve from there is where you start developing leaders who can fill team leader positions, and there's like a proper leadership pipeline. There's an effective tracking process. You really start working to implement the sales development program, and market research now becomes a standard practice. Whereas in the previous stages, you don't really need too much, because all you should do is just focus on marketing and IT, whichever one of them that you can focus on your sub product. Yeah. Now you move on to the direction phase, and the way we've split up the direction sub stages. We've called them first base, second base, third base. The baseball analogy there, right? And this is where like the first time we would recommend you having team leaders, where they're like, you have a little larger team, and the team leaders help the VP because they have more leadership pipeline coming in to need IGIP. You have more than just one active seller. An active seller, again, is a person who goes on at least 4 meetings a month, and the team culture becomes a thing where like there's a team culture as opposed to just individuals running the show, and all members truly understand the product that they're selling, and the basic raise, match, realization processes. And in terms of the structure, depending on we would recommend about 2 team leaders. Still focus on one sub product. Just stick to one of them. Both the teams doing that, and have an account delivery team leader as well, who's focusing on managing the accounts. Yeah. In order to evolve, you truly start looking for specific IGIP salespeople, whether it's within ISAC or not. And in terms of account delivery, a suggestion is to actually just recruit internally, whether it's through another function or through from the BD team, as opposed to recruiting externally. And this direction phase is like where you have leaders who are like directing IGIP to move forward, but also start working on the team culture. So you start implementing evaluations, routine checks, feedbacks, and all that. Yeah. So once you do all this is when you start moving to a direction 2, where leadership pipeline is a big thing. It already exists. You're doing market research in your local segments to figure out sub products that work for you. Active sourcing is taking place, and your team could be focusing on 2 sub products at this point, whereas marketing and IT, or if you feel you need to focus on engineering, that's fine too, but I would strongly recommend you talking to me or your coach before you move beyond that, and your team starts beginning to understand supply and demand and taking that into account as you're pitching, right? And this should happen in the previous stages as well, but this is where they get a really good grasp of how supply and demand works. And the team structure, I would recommend, still stays the same between direction 1 and direction 2. And the AD team size, again, depends on the number of accounts you have. Now, in order to evolve, is where your team, there's like a sales culture in the entity. You have experienced members in account delivery. There are multiple role models that exist in the entity, and your LC has like creating pipeline for like national leaders and national positions. So you have multiple NST members, star sellers, etc. So you have like more than a couple of people who are truly IGIP champions. And direction 3, this is where no entity is in right now. We only have one LC who's a direction 2 LC. At direction 3 is where you have multiple team leaders, you have a strong leadership pipeline, you're focusing on multiple TN contracts. Team dynamic is a big thing, so you have multiple people in the team. The team is driving sales as opposed to just the VP. And this could be a good point where you actually create that BD AD split, where you have a VP ICX and a VP AD, or VP BD, VP AD, whatever nomenclature you would like to use. In order to evolve, you will truly need to start spending a lot more time on customer experience management, begin innovative market research, so figuring out like newer ways, newer segments that exist in your entity. You're re-raising a lot, you have really strong partners and a strong partnership supply, and you're focusing on your customers as a function of your growth as opposed to just newer sales. So that was just a gist. Please look back at the slides to see more details in terms of what is happening and how you can evolve. And in the next slide is where you can see we have put your entities in creativity 1, 2, 3, as well as direction 1 and 2. If you have any questions about that, please contact your coaches as well as myself. We worked really hard to figure out where your entity should be functioning on. And if you look at it, you can see that most of our LCs are in creativity 1 and 2 right now, which means you should have small teams, focus on one sub product, understand the process, deliver education, and just go fucking do it, right? So next couple of slides, I just wanted to talk really quick about synergy, because this is something that has lacked with IGIP in the past couple of years at a local level, where we're not synergizing that much and leveraging other functions as much as we can, right? So with respect to OGX, there's a lot you can do because they are the champions in your university right now in most entities where they have good connections with the university, with departments and all that. So work with them, get those connections who can like add more credibility to your brand, and maybe the university takes trainees as well. And the other thing you can do is deliver sales training to OGX. And trust me from personal experience, once you start delivering more training, that's when you truly understand the program a lot better and the strategy that you're focusing on. The second with marketing is product development. So whether you look at the sales brochures, we just got the new ones, which we'll be launching really soon. The one pagers, any specific products that you end up creating at a later stage when you're a direction 2 or 3 entity, you should be working on that. Content marketing is big. And one cool suggestion was like LinkedIn, where now you can all like write articles, right? So entities that have brought in trainees, you can like be the thought leaders that we need to be, and maybe this will lead to inbound leads, where if companies start seeing more of ISAC and talking about they're like a youth talent solution, maybe they'll start coming up to us as well. And social media, how you can build your brand. Finance, something really crucial, which a lot of us don't understand, and how to use our finance strategically. Some very simple ways, right? Get Chamber of Commerce memberships, go to networking events. These are like high ROI because you'll get warmer leads through through conversations at those events. And lastly, like bring in trainers, right? So you could talk to your VP Finance and invest in bringing in your NST coach, bringing in me, bringing in other top sellers from around the country to deliver sales trainings, and also go on meetings with you where you could truly learn on how to close better, how to run a meeting better. And lastly is talent management. And this is really crucial because right now we truly lack the talent capacity in IGIP in most of our LCs. So using them to have more mentorships that we can figure out why are members leaving or why are members saying, conducting LC-wise sales blitz, implementing the sales development program, which truly is just a way how sales teams should be run. And TM can really play a very crucial role in implementing that in your functions. And recruitment, which is the most important thing. We really need to figure out how to recruit the salespeople that we need and people that are truly going to help IGIP and be the role models that we need. Yeah, so that was a quick summary of the growth model session. And as always, please feel free to reach out to me or your NST coaches because they helped me a lot in coming up with these growth model allocations if you have any questions about them.